Hello there, my name is Katie and you're watching my channel Super Console, where today we are going to be reviewing Acquire's latest venture to the geek hub of Akihabara in AKIBA'S Beat, published in Europe by P-Cube. It may be from the same string of games, but AKIBA'S Beat really isn't related to AKIBA'S Trip or Undead or Undressed in any way. You know, those games where you ripped off the clothes of enemies to expose them to their ultimate weakness, the sun. In fact, AKIBA'S Beat isn't even a beat 'em up. Instead, it has taken the form of a real-time action combat JRPG, and really this is its first step backwards from its predecessors, as although Trip was certainly full of fan service moments stripping women and men alike, its wacky combat mechanics were fun, whereas Beat's gameplay is just so generic in comparison that it truly doesn't have any standout features. But before we drill into the combat and gameplay, let's first take it back a bit and talk about the story of AKIBA'S Beat. You play a self-confessed NEET, Asahi Tachibana, which, if you're like me and never heard of the term, means not in education, employment or training. Rather, Asahi likes to sleep in until midday, play video games, and mill about in the colourful streets of Tokyo's Electric Town. I mean, who wouldn't? But unfortunately for him, his laid-back lifestyle takes a turn when he finds himself mixed up in a weird series of events where the streets of Akihabara are transformed and twisted by the people's desires who roam within it. For example, the first level sees Akiba warped by the dreams of an audiophile who wants the district to return to its audio shop glory days. Asahi is stuck in a sort of Groundhog Day loop, and in order to escape the never-ending Sunday, he must travel into a world called the Delusionscape, and take down the delusions and monsters inside, which, if you're thinking sounds kind of like the Persona dungeon mechanic, well, you'd be right. That's really where the comparisons end. Inside the Delusionscape, you're met with a dungeon themed to whatever delusion is currently taking hold. For example, an early dungeon will take the form of a brightly coloured stage with cheering fans and floating pink decorations to mimic the delusions of an idol fan. But the enemies within each level are just cut and paste copies of the same monsters, albeit reskinned with some colour variants. Battles feel unstrategic and dull, more like random flailing than actual fighting. Standard combat is a mix of spamming square to form a classic strike, and every now and again unleashing a skill attack to execute more damage. There is a special attack mode you can build up called the Imagine Field, which initiates a flashier battle scene to the tune of an upbeat song, which are unlocked throughout the game. Your attacking character stats will be boosted for the duration of the song, but essentially you're still just mashing square to win. When I was playing it, I couldn't help feeling that regardless of how silly the whole premise of AKIBA'S Trip was, it did help to ease that feeling of repetitiveness and made winning battles actually feel satisfying in some strange sort of way. AKIBA'S Beat does do a pretty good job of recreating the layouts and iconic buildings of the real world Akihabara. As someone who's been there a few times, it was fun to find myself walking across the main pedestrian crossing in-game, looking out over the Club Sega building. Sadly though, there really isn't that much to do in the rather small map of Akiba, other than visiting a few shops for clothing, health items and gear. And when I say visiting shops, I mean just going kind of near the outside of the building and seeing a menu window pop up, rather than actually physically going inside. NPCs take the shape of coloured cutout people similar to Tokyo Mirror Session's Sharp FE, with random text callouts popping up as you walk past. But with a combination of no real interaction between NPCs or shops, it makes the Akiba setting feel sadly soulless and empty. There are however a few subplots to help break up the monotony of the main story, where you can learn more about individual side characters and their backstories. These events are unveiled as chapters for each character, which you unlock as you progress through the game. AKIBA'S Beat is heavy on the dialogue, which is fully voice acted, but personally I found some of the English voices really grating. Especially the whingy protagonist Asahi,
hey, you're the cat girl maid from yesterday,
and super screechy Pinkham.
He doesn't know his ass from his elbow when it comes to sound quality.
Who may just steal the award from Navi for the most annoying support character ever made, with his overuse of dingus in the English translation. Thankfully, you can switch over to both Japanese voice and text if you so desire in the title screen, which I swapped over to as soon as I completed the first dungeon. If you're considering whether to get the PS Vita or PS4 version, a word of warning that the Vita version is plagued by frequent and frustratingly long load screens, which seem to pop up at nearly every turn on the in-game map. I'm not even exaggerating when I say that one of the load screens was so long that I actually got up and made myself a cup of tea in the time it took to boot the next scene. As expected, the PS4 version does run a whole lot better and feels smoother, visually looks much brighter, and generally enhances the overall look of the game. As I was putting through each story quest subplot and repeatedly jumping back and forth through the same in-game areas, Overall, I couldn't help feeling as though AKIBA'S Beat is full of missed opportunities to really bring the setting and nicely designed cast of characters to life. Even its musical theme didn't really feel fully integrated into the game's design. How cool would it have been to have dungeons set to the rhythm of a specific song, prompting you to move in time to the beat and deal out attacks in the same pattern for added combos, similar to the wonderfully simplistic but effective design of Crypt of the Necrodancer. But ultimately, even if the game was restricted by its budget, AKIBA'S Beat just lacks that originality and identity of its own to set it apart from the rest of the mid-tier Japanese RPGs out there. Thanks very much for watching. If you found this review handy, make sure to hit that like button. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing for more Japanese gaming and anime chats, and otherwise I'll see you in the next one. Bye!